I'm Euro.
I'm Chris. And this is Fork Bomb.
Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. Episode 30, Pop OS. Let's do this, Chris. Pop OS. Let's talk to people about Pop OS.
I hope you have your pop filter to filter out the plosives, because we're going to be saying pop a lot.
All right. So what can I say about Pop OS?
What is it? What is it?
So it is a Linux distro based on Ubuntu. So Ubuntu 20.04 was recently released, and right after the minute after Ubuntu 20.04 released, maybe a minute and one after, Pop OS, which is actually made by a company called is it System 76, something like that?
System 76.
Yep. So they released their newest version of Pop OS, which is Pop OS 20.04. And as you might have guessed, it is based on Ubuntu 20.04 code. So, very, very neat stuff. I am actually really, really, really enjoying this OS. Oh. So much so that I've decided to get rid of Ubuntu everywhere. And by everywhere, I mean even on my work computer. That's pretty serious. Yeah. When even on your work computer, you're rock solid. It has to stay up because you're working on it computer. You know, you go in there and you remove all traces of Ubuntu, format, and put Pop OS.
So to give a little bit of background before we go further before we start gushing about it, because we are going to fangirl, System 76 is a hardware company. Their product is computers that are designed to run Linux. For the longest time, they shipped exclusively with Ubuntu, but then they started rolling their own distribution based on Ubuntu called Pop OS. And at first, it was just a kind of a reskin of Ubuntu, just a different GNOME theme, a little bit of polish, but it has grown to be something entirely its own now. The differences are big enough now that I think it's safe to call it a unique distribution. And the interesting thing about it, from my perspective, is I hate System 76, but I love Pop OS. I don't hate System 76, just I think they make a crap product. I've had two of them. One died after 2 years, the laptop, and the desktop that I bought from them caught on fire. So
wow, like literal fire, huh?
Very close to smoke. The screen turned off, smoke came out of the USB ports, and when I opened it up, those USB ports were melted. So it did burn.
There were microfires. So they were flames, I'm sure. They were just at a microscopic level. Well, you know what, Rick? Why did I call you Rick? You know what, Chris? Oh, man, this podcast is already falling apart. So I think that Carl Ritschl, which is why I think I said Rick, would disagree with you, because he is the CEO of System 76. Actually, you know, I totally meant to go over the history of System 76. And thank you for actually jumping in and stopping my fangirlness, talking about Pop OS, to talk about System 76. I just wanted to mention that it is they are based in Denver, Colorado, and they do specialize in both hardware and software. They were actually founded in 2005, so yeah, 15 years, not too bad. And you know what's really neat is that they're kind of I don't want to compare them to Apple, because, you know, Apple seems to have hardware that doesn't catch on fire for Chris. But they're kind of like the Linux version of Apple, where they make their own hardware and then their software on top of that.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Up until recently, they didn't make their own hardware. They are now with their Clevo, not Clevo, with their, oh hell, I forgot what they're called. System76.com. With their Thelio brand Thelio, Thelio brand of desktops. Those are made by them here in the United States. But that's a recent development. Their line of laptops are rebranded Clevo laptops, which, in my opinion, are low-quality laptops. They come from China, or as our dear president would say, China. And they just, in my experience, have not been very good hardware. So if you do get any hardware from System 76, maybe avoid their laptops. Check out the Thelio line, because those are more comparable to something that you would get from Apple.
So you don't like the Lemur or the Gazelle?
The one that died was a Lemur.
How about the Meerkat?
I think that's a rebranded Intel Nook.
It looks like a Nook. Yeah. All right. Well,
but
just to continue,
they make an operating system now.
Yes, they do. But just to continue talking about the company real quick, fun fact, the number 76 in the company's name alludes to the year 1776 when the American Revolution took place. So I totally read that from Wikipedia, and I wouldn't have known that without that, but yeah. So the company's founders likewise hope to ignite an open source revolution, ultimately leading to a situation in which consumers do not rely on proprietary software. Well, if their software is anything like their hardware, that wouldn't work, but it's not, so good thing. All right. Well, I think that's good enough for the history of the company. Let's talk about good old Pop! OS, and by old I mean new, and by new I mean not that new, but new enough.
Okay. You turned me onto it. In fact, I had initially dismissed it as just some silly Ubuntu reskin from some subpar hardware company. But you changed my opinion on that entirely.
What was it that I said that made you actually switch? Because I can't even recall.
I forget. You were talking about it a lot, and
I probably went nuts, yeah.
I decided before I poo-pooed on it, I would give it another look and started reading about it. And, well, I had also noticed a lot of people on Reddit liked installing it. Never knew why. Never knew why it was gaining so much traction. So I figured it's been some years since it's been out. Since you're playing with it, I figured I would give it an actual look instead of just forming an opinion based on no evidence. And so I did. And I'm glad I did.
That's great. I was watching a YouTube video. Okay, let me backtrack. So I've been looking online and especially watching YouTube videos on how to game in Linux. So for gaming, I always pick Windows. It seems to be the superior platform when it comes to gaming. But I've been wanting to game in Linux because you can, and because you can now. And I watched this YouTube video on, and I think it was one of those Linus Tech Tips on how you can game in Linux nowadays. And so I was like, okay, let me watch this and then completely laugh at it and say, wow, this is totally not Windows and it sucks. Well, turns out that with Steam Play, which is I don't know how to describe that really. It's like a subsystem of Steam, which allows a greater compatibility layer with Windows games to run off of Steam, and then you can run it on Linux OSs. And I know, Chris, you're going to correct me completely on this, but anyway, so Steam Play uses a software package, I think, called Proton. And Proton's matured enough now to be able to really run, Windows games at a decent frame rate. So I was playing things like Risk of Rain and a couple of other games, typically Windows games that are now accessible to Linux users. And I'll get to Pop! OS in a minute. It's just this kind of leads into Pop! OS. For games that are not Steam compatible, or you just can't find them in Steam, then you can use another application, very, very, very similar to Wine. As a matter of fact, I think it uses Wine, but it's very easy to use, and it's called Lutris. And with Lutris, what you can do is you can just type on the you download the application, you type in the game that you want to play, and most likely somebody has built an installer for it. And by an installer, I mean like badass. It shows like when you're installing, it shows the splash screen. It looks like it looks like you're going through Netflix and you're picking what you want to watch. Like it actually has the title and everything and the description. It's cool. Cool. So with Lutris, I was able to install some software that, again, normally would only work in Windows. And if you wanted to work in Wine, then you have to pick which Wine works on it. Sometimes you have to go online and find out which Wine version works the best with that, and etc. Well, Lutris does all of that for you. Somebody's already probably built an installer for your game, and you just click on it and it downloads everything for you, creates a nice little container, and it even puts an icon on your desktop. So it's freaking awesome. And now I'm starting to really see how Linux gaming can pick up, by using all of these different software. So with all of that said, now I can talk about Pop! OS, because when I think it was Linus Tech Tips, they were talking about gaming and gaming OSs and gaming in Linux specific. I think they mentioned Pop! OS somewhere, and then as I started to read about Pop! OS. It seems like, it's not built for gaming, but it definitely is gaming oriented or gaming friendly in that, the Pop! OS store already comes with Steam. You don't have to install any repos or anything like that. It's right there. It's on the main page. When you click on the App Store or whatever you want to call it, the package manager, it's right there. One of the first links is install Steam. And then next to that, Lutris, it's right there and it's so accessible. So as I was watching these videos, I started to see other things too that I don't want to mention exactly right now because I know we'll mention it later, but more and more differences between Ubuntu, which is what Pop! OS is built off of, and Pop! OS. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then I went nuts after I installed it and then told you about it. And now we're podcasting about it.
Nice. Proton does use Wine. Steam Proton uses Wine under the hood. And they tweak it to where it runs the games well and to where you can just install it through Steam. So it's all Windows gaming on Linux is done under Wine, which is cool. And it's really cool what Steam has done to make that accessible.
It's seamless.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. You download a game that normally wouldn't work in Linux, and forget about it being just Steam. Sometimes Steam wouldn't even show the game because you're in Linux. So it wouldn't show the game. You're not in a compatible operating system. Well, now you're starting to see that a lot of these games are showing up in Steam for Linux. So, and it's all because of Proton. I believe you do have to enable system Steam Play. I think you just go to System Properties and you just enable it. It's just one box. You just check it and then you're done. It might ask you to restart Steam. That's it. And that's about it. So
now there is nothing inherently different about Pop! OS that makes it better for gaming, with the exception of it has a separate installer for people with NVIDIA cards that have the proprietary NVIDIA drivers pre-set up, so you don't have to do that post installation. So that's a nice handy helper. And like you said, they make Steam and Lutris more accessible by bringing it front and center in the Pop! Shop.
So it's about making things as easy as possible, especially for beginners, and people just wanting to try Linux without completely, jumping into the deep end. So with that aspect, it's great. I mean, I have an NVIDIA card. I have a laptop with hybrid graphics. I installed the NVIDIA version of Pop! OS, which is it just comes with the NVIDIA drivers, and it all worked out of the box. With that, I did have a different issue, but that's just it's tailored to my laptop, and we'll talk about that too. So it's not like the OS doesn't have any issues. But
for some reference, if you did this with stock Ubuntu, it would come running by default with the open source Nouveau drivers, which do not perform well at all. That's not Nouveau's fault. That's NVIDIA's fault for being, no, our secret's precious. So we don't have the specs, and so we can't make a good driver. But it gets people started, and then but the point is, you have to install the proprietary drivers later, whereas Pop! OS, they do that for you. So it's one of the many conveniences that Pop! OS brings. Also, under Ubuntu, you would not be able to find Steam as easily. Sure, you can just type Steam in the Ubuntu Software Center and it would show up. And Lutris as well. But there are some significant differences in how Pop! OS and Ubuntu handle packages as well. And we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yep.
So should we start on
let's do it.
The nitty-gritty,
whatever it is.
the nooks and crannies?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so when you first install Pop! OS, actually the installation is super simple and it's incredibly fast. I don't know if it's just my new laptop that I'm using or what, but I've actually installed Pop! OS in several desktops and laptops now, and it's been incredibly fast. Actually, faster than Ubuntu. I don't know what it is, but it is faster overall. The installation is incredibly simple, very similar to Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is actually pretty simple as well to install. But for Pop! OS, System 76 made it ridiculously simple in that you can just click clean install, similar to how you would with Ubuntu, but here's where I prefer Pop! OS is that when I do a custom install, typically I install Windows and Linux on the same hard drive, or actually sometimes I do two hard drives, but typically I'll just have the same hard drive and a couple of partitions that are different. With Pop! OS, I had to create, I think it was 3 different partitions. They were super easy to do, all color coded. It puts checkboxes right there where you're going to install Pop! OS on. I mean, really, they made it idiot proof. So and it'll tell you if you create a partition. So you have to create 3 basic ones. The ext4, that's where you're going to have most of your files and everything. And then you have to install, and you don't have to, but I guess it's recommended to install some swap space. And then your small partition, which is the boot FE partition. It will tell you if you don't have a boot FE partition selected, and it won't even let you go forward. It'll say, hey, you gotta set up a boot FE partition, and then you do. And if you don't set up enough space, it'll tell you don't have enough space for your boot FE partition. Like add more space. So it's made ridiculously easy. To the point where I was able to do it. So yeah. I mean, it was super simple. And again, as soon as you're done with those 3 partitions, it is super fast. It doesn't ask you any other questions or anything like that. It just goes, it has a picture of a rocket ship. Actually, by the way, the theme of Pop! OS is just incredibly awesome. It's got little robots and rocket ships everywhere. I know it's silly but I enjoy it. So I like space, and this has a lot of it. Some of the themes and stuff too, like the theming. Ubuntu uses like an orange and black when you have the dark mode on. This thing, at least for me, it came automatically with dark mode on, which I appreciate because I didn't have to do anything. And it had this like cool teal, blue, and black. I don't know why, but it actually works. And a cool wallpaper to boot. So I would just, as soon as I installed it, I felt at home kind of. So those were some points that I wanted to go over. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to the install portion or anything like that.
I do. You definitely got a lot more into the custom install side than I did. I didn't look at the custom install side once because I just let it install as the primary and only operating system. But there are significant differences between the Pop! OS installer and the Ubuntu installer. And one of them is when you take all of the default options, it does full drive encryption by default, which I think is fantastic. Most people, when they install an operating system, you have a password to log in, but they think that password somehow protects their files. It doesn't. You can boot into a live CD and look at all the files. They're right there on the hard drive. unencrypted. But with full drive encryption, you can't do that because that's a separate password from your login password, and you have to put that password in for the computer to even boot. You're right in that it does, and that it feels faster because it is faster. They've put a lot of time and effort into polishing it and speeding things up. I cannot give a full technical account of what those things are. One of them is using, I know we'll go into further detail about this later because you have, I know how you feel about this. They choose systemd boot over grub, and they did that purely, largely for the speed increase that you get. Going from a cold boot to a full desktop takes mere seconds. It boots extremely fast. Yes. I think they must have made some tweaks to GNOME as well to make things feel faster, maybe faster animations, maybe some tweaks to the underlying GTK and Mutter frameworks. But they put in a lot of work and polish, and it shows. It feels faster than any other GNOME-based distribution I have ever used.
It really does, especially when you're opening up the app drawer. You see all the apps come in. I mean, pop up. It's amazing. It's really fast. Scrolling through windows and stuff. It just, there is a difference. I've been using Ubuntu for a while, and in going to Pop! OS, there is definitely a difference. Everything runs so smooth. So,
you're right about the theme selection. That too is a difference. I think under stock GNOME or under Ubuntu's GNOME, you have to do that through GNOME Shell. They make that a main setting option to choose between the light and dark theme. So that's another nice convenience.
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave it there for now.
Okay. So, in this whole going through all the awesome stuff that, and it's a lot of awesome things about Pop! OS. Some of the interesting things, although I wasn't able to fully take advantage of this because I don't have a System 76 laptop, is they actually do firmware updates right there on the OS. There's a button there for firmware updates. If you go to settings, it'll be on the left-hand side. You'll see a firmware update button. So I'm guessing that's more for their System 76 laptops, although I did hear, and I'm sure somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but I did hear that they're starting to make firmware updates for other machines other than their System 76. I don't know. I haven't received a firmware update on mine, but yeah, just thought that was really neat. It does support fingerprint login if your laptop supports that. Sadly, it doesn't use Windows Hello. I wonder what they would call it. Pop Hello. Pop Hello. Pop Hello.
Polo.
Polo. Polo.
Polo.
Yeah, so, but maybe that's coming because I'm seeing a lot of laptops and webcams now support Windows Hello. So maybe that's coming. Who knows? Let's see what else. They do have an OS upgrade button, so you don't have to. If there is a new version of Pop! OS, not only will it most likely tell you because of system updates, but it also has an update button on the system tray right there, on the system center, I guess you would call that, the settings, to upgrade your OS. Thought that was neat. Something new for I think it's for 2004 is the tile windows part. Was that there on 19?
Can we back that up a little bit?
Sure.
About the operating system upgrade option. That is a significant difference because normally in Ubuntu you would have to go into the Ubuntu software app store thing, and it will tell you, hey, there's an upgrade. Under any other version of Linux, you would have to do it from the command line or use whichever software updater they have. So it is interesting in that they integrated that directly into the GNOME settings.
Yeah, that's definitely not in Ubuntu for sure. One thing I kind of want to just in case, I don't know, but I don't think that Pop! OS 19 included the tile windows settings.
I'm not sure if they did or not, and that is a part of Pop! Shell, which is an add-on that they created for GNOME.
Yeah, I don't see it on here either. I think that is a 2004 thing. Huh,
Might be.
okay. Yeah, I'll have to do a little bit more research, but I don't see anything on here about 1910 with that. Somebody's going to correct me. That's fine. But I don't see it. So tiling windows, I don't use it that much, but it's nice that it's there. And basically, it'll resize your window to maximize the amount of space. So it depends on how many windows you have open. It'll just evenly distribute your space amongst your desktop with all your open windows. So that way you could have every open window that you wanted to all on your desktop space. So I don't know. Do you use it, Chris?
No, because it doesn't work well. To add on to that, for anyone who has never seen a tiling window manager before, there are two types of window managers: stacking window managers, which we are all used to with Windows and Mac OS, and the mainstream Linux distributions where a window can sit on top of other windows, and tiling window managers to where no window is able to sit on top of another. So if you have one window that's full screen and then you make a new one, suddenly they'll be side by side by default. And then you make a new one, and then you'll have one above the other and then another on the left-hand side. The point is that they never overlap. And that's what their tiling window extension does here. But it's very easy to break. For example, with windows that have a minimum size, say GNOME Calendar, that you can't shrink it down past a certain point, that breaks the tiling. And the window that can't be shrunk down will overlap the other windows. If you want to see how a tiling window manager should behave, check out something like i3 or Awesome Window Manager or Xmonad or DWM. Those all tile much better. But it's good that it's there. It does work. It just works kind of weird. But no, I don't use it. But mainly because all of my windows are full screen and I use workspaces. One full screen window per workspace, and I have all of 4 workspaces.
Okay. So, that's interesting. I didn't have those problems, but only because I didn't use anything irregular. I mean, I was just running Chrome and probably Geary, and I forgot what other app. I may have a terminal, and that's it. And everything was working okay. I didn't have any. I didn't run anything specific there that would cause it to have issues. So maybe if you're in that percentage of users that do have an application that wouldn't normally work right on the Windows tiling, and if you've tried it before on other Windows tiling software, then it's very likely it's not going to work here. But it's nice that it comes with it. You don't have to have it on if you don't want to, and it's incredibly easy to turn it off. All you have to do is go on the top right-hand side. There is a button that looks like a square, a flag of some sort with I don't know. It looks like a box with 2 other little boxes. It's supposed to represent Windows on a single screen desktop. But anyway, you just click on the little switch bar there to turn it on and off. And I did a little bit of research, and apparently it says that POP 2004 features automatic Windows tiling, and it's one of the first things that they talk about. So it must be a 2004 thing. So, yeah. All right. So that's that.
Can we talk about differences in Pop OS's GNOME compared to other distributions GNOME?
Yes. Go for it.
So this is the first distribution that ships with GNOME that I like. I don't like GNOME. I've never liked GNOME 3. I thought their departure from GNOME 2 was stupid. I have stuck with other desktops like Mate and XFCE and Cinnamon to go with something more traditional, or if sometimes I'll still go on a wild hair and use something like i3 with a super minimal setup. But GNOME, I would try it, give it all of a day, and then decide that I don't like it. Issues I have with GNOME: by default, most GNOME distributions ship with Wayland. Wayland is great. It's supposed to replace Xorg, but it's still not ready. There are still too many things that break. It's the best shape that it has ever been in, but you still can't do screen sharing with Zoom. There's still a myriad of other issues that will just paper cut you to death when you try to do actual work on it. Pop! OS ships with Wayland turned off by default. GNOME, stock GNOME, they do that silly reverse scrolling thing that Apple, quote, air quotes, invented, called natural scrolling, where it's just reverse.
Yeah, that's scrolling. All it is.
They ship with that turned off by default, whereas stock GNOME ships with that turned on.
I always
they ship with a dark theme by default, which you mentioned, which I like. What else? Pop Shell, which, along with tiling, has a very fast Quicksilver or Rafi style launcher that's accessible through the super key and /.
Yes, and you know what? Let me stop you right there because this is one of those things
instead of using the GNOME Software Center, they use the Pop Shop, which I believe is just a fork of the GNOME Software Center. And what else was there that I want to talk about? All of the little things that they put into the GNOME settings, they ship with their own extensions manager that you would normally have to get in through GNOME Tweak. They make that accessible just straight from the setting without using GNOME Tweak. What else? Geary, pre-installed. A very good mail manager. And they also add into GNOME the ability to switch between dedicated and integrated or hybrid graphics.
Well, you mentioned a few things that I wanted to talk about, so that's great that you've already mentioned it. So about the app launcher. The app launcher is something that I always install with Ubuntu, and with anything else that I install, I always install it. Even on Windows, I found out that Windows has some app launcher called Wax or something like that. Wox, I think, WOX. So I always install it on there, and it's always complaining about how the everything service isn't running. So that's one of those. I always install it, and in Ubuntu, I was installing Albert and then GNOME Do. I would always have to go into the App Store and find to the package manager and find whatever system launcher that they had. Well, turns out that this already comes with one, and it's actually really fast. I don't know what the name of it is, so I guess it's just called System Launcher or Application Launcher. And you can actually see what the shortcut is if you click on that icon on the top right. That would be for the Windows tile button, and you see the shortcuts right there. It'll give you the shortcut for the launcher. So typically it comes with if you press the super button, which is also the Windows key button, and also the I guess that's the // that would give you the system launcher, the app launcher would come up. I actually did modify that. I had to install though because I couldn't find it in the keyboard shortcuts. It's supposed to be there, but I didn't see it. So I installed an application called dconf, and I was able to change it to super and then space, which I prefer. So yeah, app launcher is pretty cool. I love how it comes with it pre-built. I didn't have to do anything. So that was nice. The App Store actually reminds me of Elementary OS's App Store, package manager, whatever you want to call it. I call it the App Store. So the updates are right there as well. There's a button in the top that's in the center, and to the right-ish a little bit. You just click on installed, and in there it'll have all the updates and everything available for you. There'll be a pop-up that'll come up with saying that updates are ready. Although Ubuntu does do that as well. This one has like a little, kind of like an iPhone or iOS little number pop up next to the store icon that will say that the updates are ready. So that's nice. I've seen the same kind of store before too. I think Deepin uses it as well. So it looks very similar, and it's easy and it's pretty fast. So
it's based off the GNOME Software Center. It's basically the GNOME Software Center. Okay,
it doesn't really look a lot like the one that Ubuntu comes with though. I don't know if that's a different software center. I don't know. It's just something about the system updates and everything being right there on the system center store. Okay. Well, Well, other things too.
Oh, actually, you're right. Mm-hmm. It's based on the Elementary App Center.
Yeah, it looks a lot like it. Lot like it.
You're right, because it's based on it.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen it there. I've seen it in a Deepin's OS as well. It's there too. Looks really nice and really polished. And as we mentioned before, it comes with Steam and Lutris. It's like right there as soon as you open it up. There's, the only thing that would have made this just a little bit better if it had already come with Steam installed. But hey, that's not hard to do. Since it is based on Ubuntu and actually ultimately Debian, you do get apt-get, so that's nice. We did mention that the NVIDIA drivers are pre-installed. You can also install the AMD version or AMD/Intel version, so you can get that installed. And I believe if you install the AMD version, according to this here, if you get that version, I think you also get Vulkan drivers pre-installed.
Yep, it comes pre-installed with us.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think it does. And you know what? I don't know if it's just... I'm reading here. You know what? It doesn't mention anything about NVIDIA not coming with it. Since AMD and, Vulkan and stuff... Vulkan did separate from AMD and became its own thing. And we could probably have a whole podcast about API drivers and DirectX and then you used to have Mantle, and then Mantle split off and then became Vulkan. So Vulkan's kind of the open source, kind of OpenGL-ish kind of drivers. So yeah, but anyway, so it comes with Pop OS. I don't know if it's an NVIDIA thing, if it's an AMD only what do you call it, driver. But it might come with the NVIDIA one. I don't know, to be honest with you. But yeah, it came with Geary pre-installed, and I've been using Geary for a long time. It's just simple. It's clean. You can. It's basically an email client, and it's very clean. It reminds me a little bit of Apple Mail, and if it ain't broken, copy it. So yeah. Let's see what else. I like how you can hit the down arrow and see a snapshot of the app when alt-tabbing. But you know what? That's also in Ubuntu too, so, there's that. It's just one of those nice things that it makes me choose Ubuntu as my Linux system of choice, and now, of course, Pop OS. You know what? Pop OS is like a super Ubuntu. I would almost say like it's Ubuntu with a cape on. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Do you want to go through some of these other ones?
Sure. So speaking of super Ubuntu, they remove Ubuntu's kryptonite, which in my opinion are snap packages. Canonical, in true Canonical fashion, decides they're going to go their own way with some technology that they want to steamroll ahead with, that they invariably do a 180 about years and years later. And in this case, it is snap packages. It is their alternative to, it's their own package installer. And what it's supposed to do is set up applications in a sandboxed fashion that has all the dependencies that they need already built into it, kind of like how macOS applications have all the libraries and everything they need already built in. The problem is that snap packages are incredibly slow to boot and to launch. They oftentimes look out of place with the rest of your system because they won't have the GTK theme you have installed built into the snap package. It's difficult to get files into and out of, and it's just a royal pain in the rear. Ubuntu has gone so far as, even if you try to remove snaps, if you try to install something like the Chromium web browser, the only option they give you to install Chromium is through a snap package. And once you install Chromium, not Chrome mind you, but the open source Chromium web browser, which a lot of people do, it automatically reinstalls the snap daemon again. So it forces it on you. Yes, you can still use Debian packages most of the way, but this is the first time that they're really trying to force you to use snaps. And they've done this with other technology before. They did it with their Upstart init manager, which they finally said, okay, you know what? We're just going to use systemd like everyone else. They did this with Mir, their replacement to X, which they said, okay, we're just going to use Wayland like everyone else. They did this with Unity.
Unity, yep.
To which they said, you know what? We'll go back to GNOME.
Go back to GNOME, yeah.
GNOME's okay. Yep. GNOME's okay. And they're probably going to do this again with snap packages and say, you know what, Flatpak probably just works better. So what Pop! OS did was they removed snaps and instead used Flatpak, which is the competing technology that does similar things, an alternative package manager. But I think it was created by Red Hat and the GNOME team, and it's not perfect. It still has some odd theming issues here and there, but they're much easier to work around. They boot faster, they run better. It's just easier. And I like it because instead of having to install some PPA to get the updated version of package X, I can just instead use the Flatpak version. And it runs fine. It updates with the rest of my system. I don't have to decrease my security by adding a PPA, which could then replace any package on my system that it wants to. So it's a more elegant and nicer way of doing things, and I'm glad that Pop! OS opted for Flatpak over snap packages.
Yeah, and actually, it's very easy to select the Flatpak version or the regular Debian version.
Oh, yes.
By just going into the quote-unquote App Store and just selecting the version that you want. There's actually, let's say you type in an app like Pigeon, and then you'll see two pigeons come up, and then one will be the Debian version, and the other one will say Flatpak. So it's that easy. It'll
be one pigeon, and it'll have a little drop-down asking you which version you want.
That I haven't seen on some of the apps that I've installed. I think Pigeon was one. Chris, I don't know. I had two to select from, but I did see the drop down that you're talking about. So I think we're talking about a combination of the two things. I could have chosen the Flatpak version by clicking on the drop down, but typically when I type it in, both do come up. So you just kind of have to. You also can choose that way.
I see.
Mm-hmm. And it's that easy. It really is. There's nothing to it. I was looking up Vulkan because it was kind of bothering me, and it does come with the NVIDIA driver as well. So I just wanted to point that out. NVIDIA does support Vulkan. So, and actually, in games like Doom, Vulkan seems to work better. And some people are even claiming it's 20% faster. And it seems to work better for Wine as well. So there is that. Nice to know. Anyway.
Very nice.
Let's see, what else? There is an installation app called Eddy that I prefer over the Archive Manager, there is the installation app called Eddy, which allows you to install .deb or .debian packages from the web. So let's say if you download something from Git, but you actually download it, from using your browser, and then you click on it, Eddy automatically comes up, and then you can install it that way. With Ubuntu, I usually had to change the default. Archive Manager would always come up and annoy me because I don't want to extract. I don't want to know what the contents inside the package are. I just want to install it. So this automatically runs Eddy and it allows you to install. It's basically one button. It says install. You can't miss it. So I thought that was nice, and it's pretty quick too.
Something else that they changed from GNOME everywhere else on Pop! OS is they disable tap to click. No, wait, no. It actually is enabled by default. Never mind.
Yeah, I was going to say I can use tap to click, but it can be removed.
Yeah, you're right. They've also changed a good number of keyboard shortcuts to make pop shell work. But that's no big deal, really. What else? They have hardware encoding, hardware video encoding enabled by default in video players. They've added
so nice.
They have added a do not disturb mode to the notifications in GNOME. I don't know if that's a thing now.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't test that.
Before, you would have to install a separate extension. They have this built in by default. And what else? What else?
I got one.
Okay, yeah.
So for me, this is huge. I recently bought a new laptop. It's a Razer Blade Pro. Freaking awesome. I love it. But one of the challenges in the past has been that, a lot of these gaming laptops, they come with hybrid graphics, which basically means that the OS will choose between which video card to use, either the Intel one, which is built into the CPU, or the dedicated graphics card, which in my case, it's an NVIDIA card. So what Pop! OS does is actually, if you go into the power settings, you can actually choose what you want to use. You can actually choose integrated, dedicated, or hybrid graphics. And that's really nice because, if you just choose integrated only, you can save a lot in battery power. A significant amount, actually. So definitely doing just that alone will get you a nice big chunk of your battery back. And I really like how that option is there. It lets you choose. And it's so easy and it's seamless the way they built it right into the OS. You just go into the top where your battery is and you click on your battery and there it is. It's, integrated graphics, NVIDIA graphics in my case, or hybrid graphics. So I thought that was really nice and something that Ubuntu should do. So, another thing that I liked, actually, you can change your battery life settings too. It's kind of your power options, and so you do get better battery life there. Although I still installed TLP for better battery management. I'm getting like 6 hours on this laptop, even though the battery really is rated for 4 hours. So that's how good you can get it by going to integrated graphics and installing TLP and things like that.
I think they install it by default.
Do they? Because I'm always installing it. I mean, but I could be, I never really check, actually. They could have. That'd be fantastic, actually. I always just install it, thinking that it doesn't have it.
They
pretty much reinstall.
They pretty much take every poorly thought out default setting from Ubuntu and GNOME and fix it.
I do think that they might have some kind of battery manager in it, Chris, because I noticed that, when I ran PowerTop, before installing TLP and after installing TLP, it wasn't that big of a difference, So they might have some kind of battery manager thing. Well, those are the awesome things. I mean, it has a great support community too. There's the Reddit community. They've been helping me out with some issues that I had. So that's actually a good segue into some other stuff. Not so great things about Pop, but I was just wanting to stop there. Do you have anything else that you'd like to say before I say some of the not so great things? Because, kind of want to point everything out.
I'm out of differences. So yeah, this is a good time for the cons.
All right. So in the segue, I don't want to be. I know that I've been beating the Pop! OS drum and that everybody should use it and there's nothing better in the entire universe. But there are some cons. I did run into some issues and that I'd like to discuss. One of them is something that you've already pointed out, Chris, and that it uses system boot instead of grub. Now, some people may like that. I think, Chris, you might like it. It is fast. It's incredibly fast. I didn't really particularly like it because I ended up and trying to fix a problem that I had with my laptop going to sleep, and I'll talk all about it. Basically, when I opened the lid from, I'd wake up from sleep, it'd go back to sleep again. It's really annoying. So I tried to fix it by installing another kernel, one of those mainline generic kernels, and it was really tough to select the other kernel that I wanted to use. So much so that I spent a long time trying to figure that out. Then I had to learn about kernel stub, and anyway, so all of this could have been avoided by using grub. And grub would allow you to revert back to the previous kernel if you don't like the new one, or use the new one if you wanted to. So many different things. Also, I use Windows as well. So remember, I have that on my hard drive. And selecting an OS just became really difficult to the point where I was going to the BIOS and hitting F12, going to the BIOS and selecting selecting windows that way. And that's just not the way that I like to do things. So I ended up installing Refined, which is a great little like a FE bootloader kind of thing. It's nice. I've used it before, especially on the Mac. You can select your operating system there, but why did I have to do that? And not only that, but Pop! OS did come with Grub before. They actually removed it in favor of speed. So yeah. Did you want to add anything to that? I mean, it seems like you may have liked Systemd more.
I'm not partial to it. I don't think that Systemd should be taking over everything like it is in every Linux distro. But I see why they would opt for Systemd boot. It was previously called Gummy Boot, and it's more of a front end for the UEFI bootloader selection that is already built into your system, whereas Grub is kind of its own little tiny built-in operating system.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, you could remove Systemd boot and install Grub post-install. So
yeah, but that's extra steps.
Yep.
This is like the awesome OS that I wouldn't have to do anything after installing.
Yep.
And unfortunately, this was one of those things. Good thing installing Refined was as easy as just getting the package and installing it and then forgetting about it. So, and it comes with a nice little GUI, not GUI, yeah, I guess so, like a graphic interface, and it has like the little icons and the penguin and everything. So it's nice. It looks all Fisher Price, but yeah, it was something that I had to do.
I haven't tried doing kernel selection like you did. I did have to edit a few Systemd boot options because it did not. It was not passing trim to my SSD by default. In fact, you may have to do this too because I know that you're on an SSD. I think if you run fstrim / it'll say that trim isn't supported, and you're going to have to modify either a setting in your bootloader or in your crypt tab in order to get that to work.
Let me try. So you said fstrim /
Yeah, sudo fstrim /
I did it. Nothing happened.
Well, good. Then it's working.
Okay.
Yeah,
and it's just you, buddy.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I'm not really partial to it one way or the other. It being Systemd boot.
Another thing, then this is just something that I like. I actually like the dock. It just, I don't know. I like looking at it. I like all the icons that are there and everything, and I like putting it on the left. I don't like the dock on the bottom. Anyway, so when you install, and I think this is a GNOME thing. This isn't really a Pop thing.
It's a GNOME
but
thing.
when you install GNOME, the dock doesn't really come up unless you hit Super. That's where, or you click on your applications. That's when that way you can see your app drawer. Then you see the dock come up. I actually always like to see the dock. So I did end up going on. I think I just Googled --dock, and it was a Firefox extension, which you just click pretty much the on button, and it installs it for you, and that's it. It's that easy. So, but I did have to do that. I didn't really have to do that with Ubuntu. It already came with its own dock, but I don't like their dock either because it goes all the way to the top and bottom, and I hate it. I don't think it looks good. I like the nice little streamlined dock that --dock gives you. Again, nothing that it takes a long time to do, but I would have liked to see the dock setting, something like --dock already be built in, and then you could turn it on if you wanted to. That would have been nice, but no big deal. But I just think it would have been a nice setting to have.
Go
ahead.
One correction there. The Firefox extension is the GNOME shell extension, and you have you have to install that in order for you to be able to install the GNOME shell extensions through the GNOME shell website.
Yep, you're absolutely right. It did ask to have that installed first, and so you have to accept, and then you can install the --dock portion. Another neat thing, and nice. I think this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Just agreeing with you. --dock is really nice.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I like seeing the icons.
It's nice. It's good. I installed it too.
Yeah, and it works well. One thing that I would like for --dock, or hell, if Pop! OS would like to add that to their OS, that'd be nice. Would be, you know how Windows, when you hover over an application, you can actually see a miniature version of your application? I would love to see that.
Like in
really
Cinnamon.
neat, actually.
Cinnamon does that.
Cinnamon does that? Man, Pop!
In
OS
fact-
needs to bring that over.
In fact, I'm mousing over Chrome right now and watching a separate copy of your video in the little
Yeah.
preview that it gives. There's got to be a
that'd
way
be
to do
cool.
that.
That'd be really cool. I'd like to see that. Yeah. So anyway, that's another one of those items. It's not really a con. I think this is more of a dash to dock thing, but it'd be really cool if Pop! OS would integrate all of that. One thing that I did want to talk about, an issue that I had with my laptop, and this is particular. I don't know if it's to Razer, but I saw a lot of Reddit posts about Razer Blade laptops having this issue to where when you install Pop! OS, you put it to sleep, you close the lid, open it back up, and then with my particular laptop, it was going back to sleep. So it made it to such a way that I couldn't even use the OS anymore. I had to restart. And that was just no good. The good thing about it, though, is that Chris, between Chris and the Reddit community, both were able to help me out, and I figured out the issue. And it's basically you have to pass a parameter to the kernel when you're starting up, and it's like battery lid equals open or something like that. Anyway, I could put the command in the notes, and then that's it, and then that fixes the issue. But it is something that I had to do extra. And again, this seems to be specific right now to Razer laptops, although other laptops may be affected. I don't know. I just saw a ton of Razer laptops with this same issue in the Pop! OS when you search for Pop! OS and Razer. So that is something to keep in mind. There is that one command you have to run, and that's it. But I did want to point that out. So that is it. Oh, one last thing. When you start up an application with Pop! OS, you can actually tell the application to start with the dedicated graphics. So I just thought that was nice. You just
very nice.
You just you right click and then you just select launch using dedicated graphics card, and so it'll launch that application with your dedicated. So why would you want to do that? For games, man. You want to run games at the best with the best frame rates and everything, but you're using integrated graphics only to save on battery, then you want to use that option. So I thought that was really neat. Again, I don't see it anywhere in Ubuntu, so yeah. Thanks, Pop! OS, for that. I don't know what else to say.
I think I'm at the end too.
Yeah. Overall, I'm really happy. As I said in the beginning of the episode, I've installed it on my work desktop. So it's on there. It's on my laptop. I used to have Ubuntu and all of that. No longer. I think that Pop! OS is a superior version of Ubuntu in almost every way. So, and I'm going to stick to it until something better comes along, or an even better Pop! OS version. So
I'm going to agree with you there. They polish all the rough edges that GNOME and Ubuntu has. It's really coming to its own. Mm-hmm. And I suggest anyone who is partial to Debian or Ubuntu-based distributions, give it a try. This is the first time we've talked about anything modern.
Yeah? I guess we're just getting old and we like talking about retro stuff.
I guess so.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I don't have anything else to say about it.
Well,
go try it.
If anybody would like to contact us and tell us what they think about Pop! OS, we can be contacted either on Facebook.
Did you say Facebook?
Facebook.
Uh-huh.
Let me get the full URL this time. At facebook.com/ForkBombPodcast, or on Twitter at ForkBombPodcast.com, where we neglect to push any episode updates. Whoops.
Sorry. I know, that's my job.
Or we can be emailed at forkbombpodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to our website at forkbomb.podbean.com and leave us a comment. So let us know what you think. Or if you don't care, tell us you don't care. We just want to hear from you.
Hit like if you like. Hit unlike if you don't like. Okay, no, sorry.
Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Like and subscribe.
Yep. Cool. Well, I really enjoyed talking about Pop! OS. It's my new OS now.
Same. Thanks for turning me onto it.
All right. Well, then see you later, Chris, and good night.
Good night, Euro. Till next time. Oh, and happy 30th episode.
Yay!
Later.
We'll do another 30. Bye-bye.